So if everything comes to pass, this video will be released on February 22nd, 2020, which is the first year anniversary of this channel officially going live. If you told me a year ago that I'd be in this position, I would not have believed you. There's so much stuff that I didn't anticipate getting into, and so many friends I didn't anticipate having, and so many experiences I didn't anticipate having, and it's just wild. I appreciate it. What is really the cartoon community? Not everybody in the community is familial, and not everybody hangs out, but I do feel like I have a place here. I feel welcome, and there's countless people to thank for that. I really do appreciate it. And of course, if you're watching this video, you're part of the squad, and you're part of what makes this channel high and kicking. And I really have you to thank for that. When I envisioned doing a milestone video, I felt like 100 was my cap for the year. But, I'm at 300 now, so that's pretty wild. I had a very long and ambitious project to plan, and if you know anything about YouTube, you know that, life in general. If you know anything about living life, you know that January is the worst month for productivity, alright? I would know I was born in this month, and I want to take it out just as much as everybody else does. So, I didn't get to execute my original plan, but I thought of something that was probably a bit better, and definitely less expansive, and maybe a bit more helpful for you. So one of the 12 principles of animation is exaggeration, which to me is the principle that resonates most deeply with the cartoon community and internet at large. What you're looking at is an excerpt from my first reel analysis. CN Reel is Overhated. It's a video that is near and dear to me, not only because it's like the first, but because I think it is the best, or at least my opinion of it has consistently been very positive. There's usually a threshold of time where after you release something, you get to the point where you see it as just hot garbage, and it's hard to see, its accomplishments for what it is. At least, for me, that's true. But for this video, I can't even make out half the words I'm saying, but the video resonates with me on a personal level. And it's something that I'd want y'all to see. There's plenty of you guys here since I made that video. But, the audio's terrible. And some of the sentences are jumbled. And, need some quality of life improvements. So that's exactly what I did. I went back into the script, punched it up a little bit. Obviously, the audio is fantastic, comparatively speaking. And hopefully I can match the editing style that I was so proud of. And I hope you enjoy this. So without further ado, let's jump into the CN Reel Redux. One of the 12 principles of animation is exaggeration, which to me is the principle that resonates especially with the cartoon community and the internet at large. For most of us, we only understand animation through the lens of the emotional or historical appeal it has to us. Most of us scrubs are not going to enter into the industry, so a lot of the conditions or aspects of production are completely lost on us unless we do a lot of research beforehand. While we tend to learn about the medium through hashing out our opinions with others, the appreciation for it or lack thereof can seem one-sided or simplistic to those more knowledgeable. At times, there can be nuanced discussions over the merit of different animation techniques, and other times it's a feels over reels bloodbath of epic proportions over how sucky Canadian flash tunes look. Generally, the court of public opinion has a bit of exaggerating the perception of a thing. Luckily, we can revisit the events and reassess our opinions in order to come to a new understanding. CN Reel turned 10 years old when I first covered it, so consider this more of a celebratory retrospective. I'm going to be diving into some history, and we're going to explore the good, the bad, and the Andrew WK. CN Reel was the perennially infamous live-action block created by the one and only Cartoon Network amidst a dark age in their history. The CN Reel slate of original content mainly consisted of game shows, dramedies, and mediocre action series. Many would say you don't need to look too deep into why this idea was so blasphemous, but I'm betting it had more to do with the notion of choosing these extra series over the medium that drove the platform in the first place. It'd be difficult to defend the choice to usher this block in for many reasons. It's not exactly a challenging artistic reflection of our consumerist culture funneled through mediocre kid shows. Though, admittedly, they probably looked more appealing alongside things like George of the Jungle. Though understandable, the extent of the outrage taken was rather outrageous in and of itself. But how did we get here exactly, and how did CN get to the point of discovering this little concept? I want you to imagine we're back in the mid-2000s, roughly 2006 or so. We're once again stuck in what is often deemed as the worst decade for animation of all time. This is usually attributed to the fact that many cartoons released here were pretty experimental in art style, tone, animation, and storylines. This period has always struck me more as a transitional period than anything else, wherein many animation studios were adapting to digital production pipelines and attempted using newer technologies to get the job done. Outside of traditionally animated series switching to digital ink and paint, series started to be animated in Flash and Toon Boom, while CG began to pick up more steam in television animation. As such, various studios and creatives soon came into prominence for the advancements they represented, for better or for worse. Now in the US, the big three kids networks had all picked up on this shift in the industry and began to experiment with these technologies throughout the 2000s. Despite their varying success in their endeavors, each network had at least one moderate success under their belt utilizing these pipelines. The big three continued to work on original animated content, though one of them became notable for deviating in a rather specific direction. Cartoon Network, consistently known as the experimental underdog of the trio, had been flirting with expanding its presence in numerous ways. They tried to start a following amongst the preschooler set with the block Tickle You, but they only gained a following amongst irate stalker moms and ended the block with less than 18 months of activity. They tried to kickstart another anthology series through Sunday Pants, but it aired for less than a month before being retired, with less than half of its run completed. They tried to maintain the anime-esque action-adventure presence Toonami cultivated by bringing in Maguzi on weekdays, but it never proved as popular and went away without a whimper the year before Toonami itself signed off. Now, Cartoon Network was never eclipsed by its own failures. It still had major successes built in the 2000s with the advent of juggernauts like Ben 10, Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, and the aforementioned Toonami boosting its profile. They got to that point from their consistent experimentation after all, so it makes sense that they would seek to escalate their efforts in the midst of these failed experiments. Thus, the push towards live action was slowly but surely fostered. While the first live-action series for the network premiered in the mid-90s, the genre started to gain influence on CN in the mid-2000s. We got a few live-action Ben 10 movies here and there, but those mostly flew under the radar compared to another project. Under the era of Jim Samples, the live-action animated TV movie Reanimated and its sequel series Out of Jimmy's Head premiered to high ratings and negative critical reception. These productions were rather short-lived, but they proved the viability and place for live action on the Cartoon Network. The notion of a tried-and-true sitcom-style franchise infiltrating the channel was grossly offensive to many, but it's not hard to see why it'd make for a good fit. With its old and new successes, Cartoon Network had been fostering a powerful force in the 6 to 14 boy demographic. This same demo would also be attracted by Nick and Disney's offerings in similar sectors. The network had built up good momentum in the past few years, so there was a pressure to seize upon that in a new and exciting way. Further cementing this was Samples resigning amidst the Boston bomb scare controversy and appointment of new president Stuart Snyder. Seizing upon the opportunity Samples had set up, Snyder had fully leaned into live action as a viable medium for the network. Only problem was, it hit the network more as a trend and less so as just another type of production. Suddenly, a new crop of series emerged, from game shows to action serials to reality TV and even a little bit of ghost hunting. They also acquired a couple shows to pad things out, like this beautiful gem, Hole in the Wall. Even outside of the block's branding, other series would make their way to the network years later. And soon enough, there was total infiltration on the whole network on Wednesday nights. This arbitrary assault on the creative freedoms of this network was only striking once a week for 2 hours on Hump Day. Even with reruns in order, that was merely a fraction of the time your average Johnny Test marathon took up. As pervasive as its marketing campaign was, the amount of time the actual content appeared on the schedule was lacking, to say the least. See Unreal lasted approximately 11 months before being skewered by the cartoon cavalry riding in to fortify their home base. Not only did the new crop of cartoons dramatically increase viewership, but they helped kick off what's mostly considered the Silver Age of Western TV animation. Series like Adventure Time and Regular Show inspired many to become active within the community and beyond, and many of their crew members of the former and latter went on to create their own works not only within Cartoon Network, but in the sphere of TV animation itself. This giant family tree doesn't lie. Thus, we're roughly brought back to the present. I think a combination of the lack of original animated programming, the rise of acquisitions, and the tragic fall of Toonami helped to contribute to the raging firestorm that terraformed the face of cartoon discourse. No matter how spicy, no amount of total drama reruns are going to distract anyone from Andrew W.K.'s frenetic attempts to demonstrate the block's realness. But once cartoons started to dominate again, the network pretty much buried the block without a trace. That didn't stop everyone from reminding them, though. So, was Seeing Real a total loss? Not to me. In a way, I'd wager that Seeing Real was a good experience for the network to have. This is the part where I continue to rag on Real for being too radical an idea that would have never succeeded. But at this point, I beg to differ with myself. Sure, the idea seemed too sacrilegious, but we did get some decent content out of it. Incredible Crew remains a powerful meme to this very day. Its biggest evil, perhaps, was enabling Cartoon Network to neglect the female demographic and kinda taking Symbionic Titan with it, but that's hardly their fault. Don't go blaming them for that. While it was rather too extreme an experiment to be a smash hit right out of the gate, there were signs of steady improvement within the block. Even with its critical failure, it provided a hell of a motivator for CN to step up their game. Previously, Rebel Taxi cited that Cartoon Network had a lot of likability in its inclination to test the waters and try something new. When they screw up, they'd be sure to try something else. Earlier on, this philosophy let them be relatively flexible with who they catered to, until they started to hone in on the younger demographics. This experiment, if anything, only solidified their incentive to remain the best place for cartoons. And of course, with this new and fabulous decade, I'm sure that we will start off the new year right. Wait a minute. There's only one new cartoon